fantastic subject of money and investing and the differences between men and women and how we perceive money. And I know that Rich Bernstein, as CEO of this institute, it's a coaching institute called Mars Venus, represents coaches all over the world that work with men and women to on various different topics. But here today we're going to be focusing on money and investing, and so I'm here to ask Rich some amazing questions. I do know that he has been working closely with the famous author John Gray, right? And I know that you'll be telling us a little bit more about that, Rich. But my understanding is that John Gray is the author of Men Are from Mars, Women Are from Venus. That book has been a seminal bestseller for decades, and certainly everyone has learned an awful lot about communication and relationship. But today we're going to focus specifically around money, and I'm so excited to have you with us, Rich. How are you today? Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I'm doing great, Lynn. Thank you. And thank you for this opportunity. You know, it's interesting that I had been a business coach for many years before I came to Mars Venus. And as a business coach, I really focused on marketing and sales. That's really the engine of companies. So I would go in and focus on that. When I met John Gray, and I actually said to him when I read the book, what does business have anything to do with relationships? His answer, frankly, is why I'm here. He said to me, if you don't think business is all about relationships, then I must be talking to the wrong guy, because it's all about relationships. And it was the first time I really looked at business, even marketing and sales and finance and time management and leadership skills, looking at those as relationships as opposed to just marketing and sales. So I really got turned on to the subject. A lot of people don't know that John Gray has actually written 23 books. Every single year, he's written a new book relevant to whatever's going on in the world.
He's prolific. And I'm so excited to hear from you because you work closely with him, but also you actually have this international coaching organization that utilizes the concepts
Yes.
with relationship. And I know that money and investing is a relationship with money. And so why don't we just dive in, if it's okay with you, Rich?
Please.
I've got so many questions for you. First of all, my first question, Rich, is from your perspective, knowing what you know with the business background that you have, and now, bringing it into the idea of relationship maximization between men and women. Do you think that when it comes to money and investing, is there a gender gap?
There definitely, most definitely. And not only is there a gender gap, and I'll tell you about it in a minute, but it does cause a lot of problems in the relationships because men have very different types of relationships based on the way their brain is wired. And women have different relationships, even, intimate relationships. You can take that exact critical thinking and apply it to the relationship they have with money. And I'll give you an example.
Great.
There's a part of the brain called the corpus callosum. It is literally the connective tissue between the two hemispheres of the brain. Women have 40% more. Now, I don't know if you know anything about the brain, but even little tiny differences make a huge difference in behavior and attitude and relationships. 40% more means that the left side and the right side of the brain, we know there are two hemispheres, in a woman's brain are actually talking to each other all the time. And in that means that women see everything connected to everything else. Their relationship with money is connected to their relationship with their kids, the same relationship with their boss, with their husband, with their friends. That is all connected. In a man, they can only be on the left side or the right side of the brain. Men have a hard time thinking and feeling at the same time.
So the compartmentalization.
Exactly. Okay. And therefore, their relationship with money is very linear. It's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. With a woman, it's very fractal. It's 1, 5, 2, 4, 7.
Which all makes sense.
And they see this bigger picture, even when they invest or their relationship with money and saving or how they're going to spend it. There's also another part of the brain called the gray matter and the white matter. This is
Mhm.
fascinating. If you were to cut on the top of the brain and take the top off and look down into the actual brain itself, women have 6.5 times more white matter than men do. That's a huge difference. Men have 10 times more gray matter. Very interesting. White matter collects data, gray matter makes decisions. So men make quicker decisions because they need less data to make that decision. Women always accuse them of, oh, you're just impulsive. You're going to buy this stock or make this investment or buy this car or things like that that are very linear. They need less information to make the same decision that a woman does.
That's fascinating.
It's unbelievably fascinating.
Well, when I have been thinking about these differences, and I love it that you're saying that the brains are actually wired differently, even
Yes.
constructed differently. Um, that's something that we want to, consider very, very seriously. But the ramifications of all this, most of my clients have always said, I have a great marriage. Love my husband, from the woman's point of view. But the one thing that we have difficulty with as a couple is money arguing. So
Mhm.
it seems as if all of our arguments are about one topic, and that is money. It always like sifts down uh, possibly lots of different potential arguments, but everything underneath it has to do with money. And so, could you talk about a little bit, maybe between men and women? Why is it
Uh,
that these arguments filter
It's a
down
great question. And
money?
I'm going to tell you something. The answer is not about the fighting over money. It's about how they see their relationship with money that is the bigger problem. That's underneath it. It is not the money per se. Yes, they see it very differently, but it's the way they see it differently is why they're arguing about it. If I can teach a man client how to understand why she sees it this way, why she wants to make decisions based on consensus where he does not. Why is everything connected to everything else? Why does she need more information to make that same decision? He's thinking, why don't you just shut up and make a decision? And she's saying, why are you so impulsive? It's not the money that is the challenge. It's the way we see the money that it's the challenge. Now, the beautiful thing is we can feel sorry for men. We can feel sorry for women, or I use it as my superpower. I say to my wife, now that I understand how she thinks, I go, well, what do you think about this? And I'll go a little slower, knowing that I'm ready to pull a trigger. I'm ready to make a decision. I don't need to talk to friends and family and have a consensus the way she does, but I'm willing to give her that. And then I want her to understand the way I think as a man is very linear. I'm not making a quick decision and I want to buy this one stock, which by the way is another investment difference, is women tend to like the more longer term investment, the more longer term, like a portfolio, as opposed to a man will say, I want to buy Apple or I want to buy Elon Musk's, Tesla. They,
Right.
they, they typically do it on a quick feeling. So this is one of the most critical things, not just in money, in all of our relationship, is what's underneath, how we think about it, how we see it, how we articulate it, how we connect with that person. And like I said, we can feel sorry for one or the other, or we can use it as an additional power.
I wanted to ask you about two different types of arguments. Let's say that we can divide arguments into two sectors as it relates to money. One sector being the sufficiency of money or the lack of money. Maybe there are some arguments about, we don't have enough. That kind of is, I'm calling it sufficiency argument. And then another kind of argument could be allocation. How are we going to allocate the monies that we do have? So in those two different types of decisions and communication, how do people differ? how do men and women differ? Let's talk about, first of all, in the first case, the sufficiency idea.
Right.
We
Right.
don't have enough money, or we have plenty of money. Why
That's
are these?
a I can't
Yeah,
believe it, because this is such a topic that we coach people around,
is
because
that right?
here's a problem that women don't understand about men. Everything in a man's life is about his level of testosterone. He wants to succeed. He wants to feel successful. He wants to achieve. He wants to fix. He wants to solve. All of these things build testosterone. And
Right.
every time a woman says, we don't have enough, he takes that personally. Like, I'm
Mhm.
not good enough. Not we don't have enough money, but I'm not good enough to support this family. I don't make enough money. And therefore, my level of success is directly related to that. So he's feeling emasculated with those kind of topics. It's not about having enough money. Is he's thinking, I'm doing my very best, and whatever I do, because this is the man's biggest complaint about women, about anything, is no matter what I do, she's not happy. No matter what I do, I can't make her happy. And so men feel emasculated. They feel, if you want a man to succeed, don't tell him we don't have enough. Tell him we have plenty and I'm so proud of you and you're so successful, and he'll go out and do more of that. So women don't understand the way to motivate the guy is to not emasculate him and lower his testosterone level, because he feels everything is personal. Everything with a man. Men
So
are
he makes it
babies. I don't know if
personal.
women have noticed this, but men typically are babies. They're very sensitive because it's all about succeeding.
Well, uh, in the event that there really does need to be more income coming in, and the woman is speaking from a point of need, can a woman communicate a little bit better regarding money so that she doesn't emasculate or offend or bring the
Great question. Great
testosterone
question,
down?
Lynn. And I'll tell you right now, if she were that kind of supportive woman, she would talk about things like a side hustle, a little bit of extra money. We can do a side business. What can we do how do we encourage that man to get a promotion, to work harder at work, to save a little better, to live below their means, so they can really look at what is the budget? Who's doing the budget? Is it within, based on their house payment or their car payments or their insurance, or are kids going to college and have changed circumstances, things like that? We have to look at, and that's the thing, is the women are looking at the bigger picture down the road. What about college? What if we have another baby? What if we have grandchildren? What about he's thinking about, what's my next promotion? None of that is connected to everything, anything else in his life.
What I hear you saying, correct me if I'm wrong, is that the woman has an opportunity here, because we have a tendency to see larger picturing, to excite and invite,
Yes.
a
And
conversation,
encourage and
encourage,
inspire. And yes.
inspire, so that we can have conversations about, well, what if? What if we can do? What if we can have higher resources? What are the resources that are possible
And
here?
let's do it as a team.
And let's do it as a
Not
team.
as a we don't have enough, we don't have enough. And this is very typical, that women don't understand how to communicate better, regardless whether it's money or anything else. It comes across that they are complaining. That's how men see it. And
Even if we don't think that we are
you
complaining,
don't see it that
we're
way.
just
You
stating
don't.
the facts
You
here.
know how women look at a complaint? As a request. Do you know how men look at a complaint? No matter what I do, you're not happy. We
Ah,
connect complaining with your happiness. That's a big problem that men, and I teach it all over the world, is she's not saying I'm not happy. She's just not happy with this particular issue, or whatever it is that you've done, your behavior, but it has nothing to do with her overall happiness. You're connecting those.
mhm. That's fascinating. So, on that topic, I do want to get to the allocation of assets that let's go there now. What, on the other hand, let's say we have plenty of money. We've accumulated assets. We've done well as a couple. And now in the investment area, we
Right?
are allocating assets, hopefully as a team. But how does this differ between men and women in terms of the way they see investments. And I think we're probably going to go talk about risk reward profiles here. But how do men and women see these choices, these decision making processes differently?
Very differently. In fact, men typically, as I mentioned earlier, they look at an opportunity like a stock. Women want more longer term security, like a portfolio, like working with a fund or something like that. They want that safety and that security, and men are not really looking at that when it comes to investment. They're saying this one stock will do well. I feel good about it. I want to buy that one, and they'll buy individual stocks. Men typically don't look for advice from people. I know what I'm doing. They really don't like I said, that testosterone building activity is don't tell me what to do. My recommendation to couples, however, is compromise. Do a little bit like this and a little bit like that. Men tend to be more risky. Women tend to be more risk adverse. You mentioned it a little earlier. Absolutely, because they don't want to have to start all over, or they worry, what if he's not around, or, down the road. Again, everything's connected to everything else. In a man, it's not. I'm just thinking about this one stock. It's going to do well. And if it does well, we make money and I succeed. So men are almost always looking at things in terms of success. Women are looking at terms of security, longer term security. So that has a lot to do with it. And I always recommend, let's meet in the middle. Let's do a little of this and a little of that. And let's look at allocation in a lot of different ways. It's interesting. One of our courses that we teach is what's called gender intelligent leadership. How men and women lead and are led very differently. Another one is gender intelligent sales. Well, we just came up with a new course just recently. It's called Gender Smart Fraud and Risk Management. How men and women commit fraud differently, and what do they do with the money? When a man commits fraud, guess what he does? He buys a sports car, he buys suits, he buys a watch, he buys, things that make him feel successful. What does a woman do? She buys an apartment building, she buys, assets, she buys investments. It just shows the way the brains are wired, that women really look for security and men look for what's going to make me feel or look successful.
Well, it's funny that you should say that, but certainly it's funny that you should say that because it's in the context of fraud. But in my experience, I'm going to flip that. The other part of that coin is, in my experience, it's quite similar that let's say one comes into newfound money by means of an inheritance, for example. Okay. And it's very similar in my experience. An inherited couple having inherited new capital, the man would have very much want to go out and buy. In fact, I have a brother who inherited some capital and he bought an airplane. I have a client who inherited capital. He bought a boat. But my sister who inherited the same amount, a down payment on a real estate for rental property.
My point exactly. I rest my case. Yes. My case.
This is real. Yeah. Inherited. And what also is kind of interesting, I noticed, was that when a couple would come to talk about their inherited capital that one or the other had inherited, but the couple would come to the investment advisor, which I was at the time, my past having been 35 years as a professional investment advisor. I had noticed that, let's say the woman was the one who inherited the capital. The man was very dominant in wanting to make sure that that capital was protected. And it was, in hindsight, I always was interested in how the man felt like he needed to protect his wife against any contingencies that investment would be mishandled in any way.
Because listen, when a woman has success without him, he feels emasculated. As I said before, everything's about building testosterone in a man. That's what we strive for. So in this case, she got the money, but he wants to have some sort of input, some sort of control, some sort of let's do the smart thing with it. Then at least he feels successful rather than do whatever you want with it. Do you know what I mean? He wants to be part of.
Whereas,
I do want to preface one thing, though, because we've been talking a lot about men and women, and I want your audience to hear one thing very important at Mars Venus. We don't want to put all men in a box and all women in a box.
Of course.
All right. Not all men are like this and all women. We're talking in general. And we have to add things like education, parenting, environment, the friends and family. Please take this into consideration that we don't want to put all men and women in boxes. Okay.
No, these are tendencies.
Yes.
And I think that they're certainly supported by documented studies and so forth. I know that I was just reading a recent study by UBS, the bank, that had actually was back in 2021, so a very recent study that corroborated what you're saying, Rich, that men tend to make decisions on investments based upon a particular something new, like an Apple going up or a Tesla, where like a newfound trend, something new that's working that they can be successful with, whereas the women would have a tendency to invest in longer term, more diversified, more risk averse,
Correct.
and that the other part of the study showed that 95% of women who were in that situation wanted to take more time to research,
Right.
to spend more time to research and have, like you said, more data.
Right.
And
That's exactly right.
they may come to the same conclusion, but they have a higher need for confidence building.
That's right. That's
And
right.
so my question to you on that is, whereas women feel like they need a little bit more confidence building, or maybe a little bit more time to educate themselves, what would you say is the difference between men and women as it relates to fear of loss? Or do women actually want to have more education, or spend more time to get more data because they have a fear of loss?
Well,
What
I
is
will
behind
mention one thing. I will mention one because I actually work with UBS. I know them well,
uh-huh.
and women, when it comes to investing, and this I saw with my wife. The first time we went there to open an account to actually work with this gal, I talked to 3 or 4 of them. I liked this one gal. We went to her office. We sat down, and I noticed that my wife wanted to have a relationship with her before she trusted her. I liked her right away. I thought she knew what she was talking about. She has a history. I read her bio. I liked her profile. I'm ready to make a decision. She actually wanted to build a relationship with this woman first, that I have
Interesting.
to build a trust with her and a bond with her. Then I'm not so worried about the future. I had another guy that I had introduced her to. I don't like him right away. I don't like him. So we're not investing over there. I'm like, but the guy's a pro and he can do this. And he's known my brother for 25 years. And yep, nope, I don't want to work with him. So I think women have a tendency before they trust and want to relinquish, so to speak, their investment, their trust in that person. They have to build a relationship. They have to bond and connect. They have to. That's what I meant earlier when I talked about to think and feel at the same time.
Mhm.
There's a part of the brain called the IPL. Women on the right side, it's larger, and it's their intuition, their
I was just
memory.
going to say that. I was just going to say that, Rich. Thank you so much, because I do believe and have had the experience over time. Women are highly intuitive
Yep.
as investors.
Yes.
And they may have a higher reaction to the fear of loss, or perhaps have had more of maybe an inherited mindset or of risk aversion.
Well, fear of
Not
loss,
sure
though,
about that.
remember, we talked about security being so important. That's why that
Security
fear of
being more
loss.
important.
But to a
But
man, I can make it again. Do you know what
yes.
I mean? That's how we
Oh,
feel.
okay. So you feel like we can start over.
I can start over. If
Men.
I lost everything, I'll just do it again. I'm successful. I know what I'm doing. I'll build it again. Which, by the way, I've done that a couple times in my life. So, but she doesn't want to have to rebuild. She wants to have that long-term security. And in order to do that, I need to trust that person. So I can call them anytime. Then I'm willing to relinquish that to somebody else that I trust. Men aren't looking for trust. We're looking for knowledge, authority. They know what they're doing, expertise. Women are looking for trust.
That's really great. Um, as it relates to now, could we move to investments?
Sure.
Um, there's been a recent article, I think it was an op-ed in CNBC, that said that let us let us now give credit where credit is due, that actually women are a superior sex when it comes to being good investors. And the article was so cute, I thought, because the article said, once and for all, we're going to debunk the old wives' tale that men are better investors. And so when you read the article, it talked about how women have a higher intuition, they have a longer term tail, long term tail in terms of their vision and what it is that they're wanting to have happen over long. But also, the article pointed out that women now have a higher sense of values. So the value investing right now, over the last 2 or 3 decades, has become a very, very important topic, whereby women who are getting more um, responsible and higher wages, finally, equality, and certainly are controlling a higher percentage of assets worldwide, are starting to really actually feel as if they have a little bit of a possibility. And the article was talking about this idea that they not only see money now as a tool. I'm talking about women. The article said they see money as a tool for impacting positive change,
Interesting.
and they want to invest their money according to their values, and that men don't really quite, they're not quite there yet. But so in other words, the article said that women are actually taking a leadership role here.
Right. Right.
Um, and I wanted to ask you about that. Have you seen that in some of your
Well,
in your
let me tell
some
you
of your
something. But even before that article, I read an article about 10 or 12 years ago from Harvard Business School, and they said that big corporations that have more women in senior level positions, the C-suite and above,
Mhm.
are more successful and more profitable long term.
Woo! Hear that, ladies?
Now, and I attribute that to exactly what I said, the corpus callosum, that everything is connected, everything. They see down the road, they see tomorrow. They see both ways. The man is very linear in we have to make a profit. Women are looking at it in terms of, yes, we have to make a profit, but we have to cultivate a culture of value. We have to
Yeah.
look at our employees long term so we don't have attrition. We have to look at this and look at marketing and look at our impact on the world. So I'm amazed that it took that long to look at that critically thinking into investing, because women that are in higher level corporate positions, the companies do better long term. In
Thank
fact, there
you.
are some countries, Lynn, there are some countries that are now requiring that they have a certain percent of women in senior positions if it's a public company. I know Germany has an initiative like that. Belgium does. Australia does, because I'm working around the world and I see some of these initiatives coming into play. And like I said, you can use it as a, your ego gets in the way, or you can use it as your superpower. I want more women on my team.
Oh, I am all for that. Aren't you, ladies? We're all for that. Thank you. I love being around supportive men, by the way. Thank you so much, Rich.
It came
Um,
from John, by the way. All of
oh,
this
good.
comes from John.
Yes, John, in every video that I've ever seen, and I have met John in person. I was on the stage speaking with him years ago, but he's always been very, very gracious to women, I feel, and embracing the best parts of us. And it's been so wonderful, his work in the world and now your work in the world, to, I mean, the fact that you have coaches around the world,
600 in 42 countries.
600 in 40 countries.
Yeah. And I will tell you something, Lynn, no matter what culture, no matter what language, no matter where you are in the world, men are men and women are women. And the challenges we have are the same in any language. I see
Yeah.
it from the Middle East to Europe to Australia to New Zealand to every corner of the world. We have the exact same challenges. And it's so interesting to me, whether it's money or anything else, I see that we can help really change the world because we don't have to fight like this over money. All we have to do is understand the differences.
I love that. Thank you so much. Um, Understanding the differences is it's interesting. It is true in every culture. It doesn't matter what race, doesn't matter what income level, what professional level. I think it's you're absolutely right. It's the same. There are differences everywhere, and how can we really work together to make this cohesive idea that we can have shared vision. Here's what I want to say. What about this? That we can develop between men and women as it relates to money and investing. We can we can create together shared visions, shared responsibility,
Yep.
shared values,
Yep.
shared outcomes, and then what about shared
But we can't
stewardship?
do that if we don't
Shared stewardship.
understand how your partner or the opposite sex thinks. Because all we're doing, if we don't understand that, is saying they're wrong. It's not about the money, their thinking is wrong. Do you know? And this is the example I use with a lot of clients. Lynn, if I'm standing in front of you and I take a big marker and on the ground I draw a big number 6, what do you see?
A nine.
Who's right? Who's right? Me or you?
Right.
This
We're
is what I
both
do with
right.
all men and women when I do couples coach. You're both right. You're just looking at it very differently. And I want you to look at it from her perspective and the same. And they go, oh, I never thought about it that way. That's actually good. If I take mine and hers and put them together, now we can be more powerful. But I got to get people to understand that we're just not the same. It's like a cat and a dog. They don't think the same way.
I think that's wonderful. One of the things that I'm very passionate about is helping women to have a higher level of confidence when it comes to money, to their money, and to understanding. And that's why, my objective here is to take some of the wisdom, real world market wisdom that I learned over 35 years of being, managing assets, managing portfolios, working with couples, men and women, um, to accomplish and achieve things over time. I've noticed that women they just need a little bit of a boost. They have, like you had said before, they need a little bit more time to
Yep.
develop use that to have a little bit more data to develop some confidence. And then, with a little more confidence, they can go back into their relationship, have shared conversations peer to peer, so
Mm-hmm.
that these kinds of, I think that probably John Gray would say, well, a woman needs to just go off and be on Venus for a while, be with her girlfriends, talk it over,
Mm-hmm.
talk, have some more education, some more communication. So that's what we're doing with
Right.
with the
Well,
gals.
there's also one other problem that I didn't mention is remember I said the right side of the brain, right above the ear, is an area called the IPL. That area is intuition, memory, those kind of feelings. All of that is more developed on the woman's side. On the man, actually, as the left side of the IPL is actually more developed. And that skill that is on that side is mathematics. And I'm going to tell you right now, that's part of the problem that a lot of women feel is that I'm not as good in math. I'm a little intimidated by math. Not all women, again, I don't want to put all women in a box, but
Right.
there's a lot of women that feeling of lack of confidence is coming from they're literally afraid of math. When I sit
Well,
down with my wife and show her mathematics, she goes, "Oh, I never looked at it that way." They can do it. It's just not as developed as it is in a man.
well, I should say that it may be a generalization, and I can appreciate the fact that there may be, as you mentioned, some reasons by which there is a brain function that kind of makes that happen. And yet, what I, in my experience, is that women actually have fast learning skills when they have some support,
Right.
so that then this math idea, the idea of numbers, doesn't seem to be so foreign or overwhelming,
Right.
but rather it becomes fun when you can achieve something that used to feel so foreign and overwhelming that we can
Daunting. It
never
was
even
daunting.
possibly get to that.
Right.
But with some support,
Right.
um, there is an absolute possibility that, in fact, women have been proven in several studies to actually be able to follow a program over time longer than men. For example, in investments, and whereby you're wanting to have risk management techniques. Women are really great, and this has been proven historically by some studies that I don't have the name of right here with me, but women are really great at utilizing stop loss orders and in making sure that they have a strategic long-term following a strategic long-term plan, whereas many men statistically have been proven that they'll follow a plan for a period of time and then shift
Right.
around and try
Right.
other things. But it's interesting to say that I do believe that women have the same capacity to learn.
Absolutely,
Um,
to learn. I'm just saying that part of the mathematics skills is usually more developed in a man. But I'll tell you very quickly, when I show my wife a spreadsheet that we get in investments every quarter, and I'll sit down and I'll show it to her, her eyes roll back in her head. But when we go to UBS's office and sit down with the gal that she has a relationship with, that she trusts and she's bonded, and she starts going through it, I actually observe she starts at the top. I don't do that. I'm going right for the bottom line. My wife is in her head, she's talking her language, going, this is on the, and so she follows her and it
yeah,
makes sense to her and she's loving it. And I'm thinking, I can't talk like that. I can't articulate it like that. I'm looking at the profit and what we made. So I'm scrolling down just that last quarter to this quarter, and each one of those going down the line. She's going, well, let's start at the top. Let's take our time. It's just
that's
so
right.
differently explained coming from a woman that she trusts.
Isn't that great? Well, I think that's wonderful because the the really money talks for women is here for that purpose, is to really help speak the language that women speak, so that we can get better at what we want, which is for both our families and for our couples, for our loved ones, for for the success of for the success of the family, for the
Right.
money to grow, for the investments to grow over time, so that we can have the impact that we want, we can have the dreams that we want to live, and the life that we want to have, and love our lives.
I agree with you. We do
Yeah,
the same thing, but we do it in a bigger context, not just specifically about money, because
right.
everything that John Gray teaches, you can apply that to, like I said earlier, not just relationships with, intimate relationships with partners, but with children. The relationship I have with my son and my daughter, the relationship we have with everything around us, including time. People don't look at, they have a relationship with time. You have a relationship with money. You have a relationship with your investments. And the biggest advice I can give to men and women is just be sensitive to the way they see it. Just be sensitive to it. Recognize the differences, and it'll make your life more powerful. If I'm a man going, that's how you think, it makes my stress goes down and I feel better.
Yes, that's right. And then it works on both in both ways.
Yes.
Like you said, I think before, I'll paraphrasing, but you said to work together. It's like a two-way street. You must work together. But those are wonderful golden nuggets, Rich. Life changing, as far as I'm concerned. What you're talking about today, life changing golden
Yes.
nuggets. That everything is a relationship. That we can have a better relationship with our money. We can have a better relationship with our investments, and certainly have a better relationship with our spouses and significant others, with which and with whom we are partnering
Right.
to make better and more joy
And
in
here's
life.
another one last caveat I want to add. If these people that are following you and are on this podcast have children, remember, the way you treat each other is the way they're going to do the same. We
Amen.
focus on generational knowledge. I want to be not just a good dad and a good husband, but I want to be a role model so that they see how I interact with my wife and go, I want a relationship like that.
Well, I would like to underscore that. Thank you for bringing that up, Rich, because one of the themes that I love to include is bring your daughters. If you're going to be educated yourself in terms of money and how to make your money work for you better and be better educated, bring your daughters. Let's include the sons, but let's make sure that generational impact
Yes.
is inclusive, and a lot of that is education, so that we can get past some of the old ways of thinking.
Right. And if
So
you talk about young girls or young ladies growing up and you can get them to start investing even just little bits, they'll grow that confidence that you've talked about, because a lot of women have never done it until they're, in their late 30s or 40s or even later. And then they don't have the confidence because confidence just comes from doing. So if you can get these young women to start investing even $100, $1,000, and start building that confidence, where will they be at 35, 45, and 50? We have to
they'll
start
be
young.
way ahead. They will be way ahead. Absolutely.
Exactly.
I so agree with you. Thank you for that. Well, is there anything else that comes to your mind that you would like to leave us with? You've covered so many very, very rich and rewarding topics
I
today,
just
Rich.
I would love that people pick up some of John's books. My favorite, believe it or not, is called Why Mars and Venus Collide. It's how
Hmm.
men and women cope with stress differently and how that affects the relationship, because investing and money are stressful. They're stressful things, right? So, and men are going to cope with their stress completely different than a woman does. Men cope with stress alone, literally alone. I have to go in my office, close the door, and sort it out in my head. Women want to talk about it. They want to bond. They want to connect. They want to get, collaboration. And that is literally opposite. My wife bangs on my office door going, we need to talk. And that increases my stress. Money is stressful. And investments are stressful. So reading that book is the biggest advice I could give. It's an amazing book. It has a lot of the science around the brain and how we act and react very differently and how that affects the relationship and stress.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. So let's all go out and get the book. The title of that book again is
Why, why Mars
Why,
and Venus
why,
collide?
why Mars and
Why do
Venus
we
collide,
collide? And this is why we collide,
by John Gray.
by John Gray.
Thank you so much, Rich
Lynn,
Bernstein,
it
for
was an
being
honor
with
to
us today.
share our knowledge with you and your audience. I'm grateful to have these kind of opportunities. And if I changed one life on this call, I had a good day.
You have done that today. Thank you so much.
You're welcome so much.